let us examine some of the elements we have spoken about in our previous lectures. Before we begin, we look for Notepad. We want to begin with the Notepad method. So just as I said, you are going to type the doc type. So doc type HTML. This will show that your document is an HTML document, and then you write your HTML, and then you close your HTML tag, which is the root. And so this is the opening tag, that is the closing tag. So whatever element you write is within the HTML tag. So you can write the head here and then close the head tag, and then from the head you have the body, and then you close the body tag as well. So we know that within the head we can have our title. So you can see the opening tag for the head and its closing tag. So the title will be written here. And then the title is, let's say, Python. Let's say Python. Okay, PHX Python. PHX Python. And then you close the title. So title, we close it. No. You close it. You bring the closing tag, because I've written two opening tags. So you bring this to show that that is a closing tag, and then you bring your meta. The meta character set is equal to UTF-8. This is a self-closing tag, and so you don't need any closing tag again. So that is that. Let us save our work. So we open to this. We go to save as. Since we are saving for the first time, let's click save as, and then look for the destination we want to save our file. Just as we said, for this project we want to create a folder called PHX, so which is found on the desktop. So there's our PHX folder, and then within the PHX folder we are writing our stuff in Python programming. It could be any folder of your choice, but in order not to miss out on certain things, you can follow just as we are doing here. So the name of the file could be index. We usually use index, or any name at all. So let me write it, my website, and then the save as type should be all files, and then my website .html. Since we are writing HTML code inside the file, we have to give it the extension HTML. So that is the file extension. We already know what the extension is. The letters that come after the point or the dot, that is the extension. And since we are using Notepad would ask us whether we want it to be a text file. If it's a text file, then it means that the extension is going to be txt, and the browser wouldn't render the text file. That is why we change it into the all files, And then the encoding is already UTF-8, so we don't touch that. We save it. So after saving, let us open our folder. This is the folder. Going to Python programming. You can see that automatically the Microsoft Edge sign is what is displayed. Okay, meaning that it's actually a website or it's actually an HTML file. So let's open the file and see what is in there. So the file has opened. This is the file. So we haven't written any code there. All the code we wrote were in the head. But you know that this is PHX Python. That is the title we wrote. And that is what is found here. PHX Python. Let's say Africa. Let us add Africa and see if it is going to change. So we write that. You see that as soon as we write, there's a star here. It means we haven't saved our file, and so even if we reload, nothing will change. So let's reload and see. You see nothing is changing, but immediately we save it and we rerun, you see that Africa is showing here. So that is our first HTML file. If you don't want it to be open with Microsoft Edge, you can come this way and then go to open with Chrome. So any browser you want to open with, you can work with it. And then so Chrome has opened this website nicely here. So that is it, PHX Python Africa. Now let us go into more details. So we come down here. Now within the body, just as I told you, let us close this. So one thing you should take note of is that the HTML rendering engine does not consider empty spaces, or when you leave a space, it wouldn't mark down that space. Okay, you get to understand this more. So let us write here a paragraph. Let's say my name is Samuel. So this is a paragraph, and I've told you that after opening the tag, you need to close it. So that's the closing tag. So let us reload. Wow. So you see that my name is Samuel has been written nicely there. So this is a text on our website. Now let us practice with more elements. So we have the header, and the headers are from H1 to H6. So H1, and then close it. We're closing the H1, and within the H1, this is header 1. Let's write header 1, and let us inspect it. So that is very huge compared to the paragraph. So now we move to header 2, H2. So that is going to be header 2. Let us see if we can copy and paste. So this is going to be 2. That's going to be 3. This is going to be 4. That's 5. This is 6. And that's 6 for you. And we would have to change all these. So this is header 6. Header 5. Header, that's header 5. Header 4. Header 3. Header 2. So we have done the closing tags. We now move to the opening tags. I believe we are good now. Let us clear this and then save and then reload. Wow, what are you seeing? You can realize that header 1 was the largest, followed by header 2 and then header 3 in that order, and so header 6 is the smallest. So this is what it means. The headers are used in a hierarchical order, and it is very much advised that you use just header 1 once in your page. So every page should have just one header 1 or one H1 tag, and that is the title, the whole title of your web page. Okay, so if you are going to use the headers, they are written in the order of importance. Okay, I have told you that your browser is also served on screen readers. Okay, so the impulse or the energy with which the reader would mention header 1 would not be as great as how the reader is going to mention header 2. I hope you get that. And so these headers are written in a hierarchical order. It's a hierarchy. Okay, so you just use one header 1 on the page. And so let's say you have a blog called Samadisco blog. So you can use header 1 as the Samadisco blog, and then let's say header 2 as the title of the various information or the news. Let's say the first news is people in Kumasi have celebrated Akwesi Dai. That is one. Okay, another header, the same header 2. Okay, let's say people in China have done this and that. So, and then when you come to the details, you can either use another paragraph or another header. So you can use header 3 to explain, oh, Akwesi Dai is a festival that is celebrated here and there and there. I hope you get what I'm saying. And so when the screen reader is reading, they understand how important each header is. So the header 1 is going to give you a higher precedence. So it's going to indicate that that information is very relevant to the page compared to the information that has been written in header 3. So now let us switch into Visual Studio Code to continue with our practice. So in Visual Studio, go to File, open the folder, and then this is the folder we are working with, which is found on the desktop. So PHX Python programming, we open the folder. So these are the files that are in our folder. We can get rid of them or we create a new one. So let's create a new one. Learning, the name of the folder is going to be learning web site .html, just as we got to know. You realize that as soon as I wrote .html, the icon here changed, and that is what is going to inform us that the Visual Studio Code understands whatever is in this file. So that is it. And now this Visual Studio Code, you see we were struggling when we were writing in the notepad, but Visual Studio Code, since it is a code editor, it understands some of our syntaxes and our workflow. And so as soon as you begin typing, it can help you complete them. It color codes your instructions nicely for you. So let us try that. So we open this. You see it has suggested doc type for us. So that is the doc type. So if we want to accept it, we can just write the exclamation mark, and then it has suggested this snippet for us. And so if we want to accept that snippet, all that we do is to press the tab key, and then that's all. We don't need to write the whole code again. Just by pressing the tab key, everything has been done for us. So HTML, the language here is English, and then UTF-8. We've covered almost all these. What we haven't covered is the viewport. So when we say the viewport or this viewport instruction, it is used to handle behaviors that exist on mobile phones. So what this code is trying to tell the browser is that most of the phones zoom in when you are working with a website, or when you are viewing a website on a mobile phone. Most of the phones zoom in. So all that this code is telling the browser is that you shouldn't zoom in. Even if you are on a phone, don't zoom in, just zoom out on the page for us. And that is all. So we begin with we've seen headers before. Let's try H2. Hello Africa. And then here we can just click this button, go live, and our website is going to show. So instead of reloading, we just click go live. Because of the live server we downloaded as part of our extensions, you can see that whatever we do is going to show here. Now we can also reduce this. Yeah, let us reduce it or minimize it. We can put this here. Let us put this here, put that there, and then this one looks somehow small. You can resize it this way, and then let's change this. Hello Africa. Okay, we are learning HTML. So as soon as I write, you can see that the page has been reloaded and it has been updated with this new text. Now let us practice with more HTML elements. So this has been suggested for us, but we wouldn't go with that. So let me turn off my Codium. Yeah, let me turn my Codium off so that I don't get such suggestions. So now let us go on to examine more of the HTML elements that are used in text. So we have small. This is small text. What are we going to see? So you can see that this is giving us a very small text. Let us examine another one. Let's go with code. So we begin with code, and then this is a text wrapped with code. So okay, so you can see that this thing is moving in line with that. If we don't want it, we can use an element called a line break. So this breaks it and then moves the text onto a new line. There's a concept called inline and block elements. We'll cover them later in the course, so don't worry about it. So we use the line break. There's also one other element called HR. We use it to draw a horizontal line between elements. We also have the SUP, that is the superscript. So this is a superscript, and then we have the SUB, which is a subscript. This is a subscript. So let us move and then look at it. It is not showing. Let's reload and see if good. So it is showing now. Let us separate them with a line break. So you have seen the superscript. Let's separate this one with a horizontal rule. Good. So you can see that with a superscript, it is hanging upward, and then the subscript is hanging downward. Okay, so this is how we write CO2, H2O, and the rest in HTML or on a website. Next element is going to be the bold. So B, this is a bold text. So you can see that as bolding the text. So if we want to make the text bold, that is the element we use. We also have the I. This is an italic text. So you can see that that is a italic text. We can also use EM. That is an emphasized text, to also display a text in italics. But this is an emphasized text, and so the screen reader knows how to emphasize the text we have written. To highlight our text, we can also use the element mark. And this is what highlights our text. So this is a highlighted text using the mark element. Let us do a horizontal rule and continue with our markup. So let us go with a Q. Okay, I'm coming. Let us do something fancy. So let us write a paragraph. John Mensah said that. No, let us not bring the quotes. We are going to use a quote element, an element for quotes. So Q, John Mensah said the man will not visit this weekend. And we can even add another complexity. Okay, good. So let us see what is happening. John Mensah said that is with a comma. Let me press Ctrl plus B so that this panel goes off. So Ctrl B takes it away. so that we can have the space to view, at least view a wide portion of our website. So John Mensah said the man will not visit Africa this weekend. How did we get this? So the whole thing is actually a paragraph. So this whole sentence is a paragraph. So the whole thing, this is the beginning of the paragraph, and then that is the end of the paragraph. And within the paragraph, there is a quote. And that is why we have, you can see we didn't bring any quotation mark, but because of the Q we have here, it is an element. You know, an HTML element is described by angle brackets. So since it's within an angle bracket, it is an HTML element. So this is what we call nesting. Nesting means keeping one element within another element. So in our previous writings, we were not nesting, but this one, we have nested the Q within the P, and also within the P, we have nested the mark, which is Africa. So it means that John Mensah said that this whole thing is the quote, and within the quote, we have Africa. So if we are writing, this is how it's going to be. So within the P, so we come down, inside the P, there is a Q. And inside the Q, there is what? A mark. And that is basically what we have done. Okay? So when you use a code editor like the Visual Studio Code and you write like this, it highlights your code well for you. And then it also brings some indentation. So there are some spaces around here, and that shows which one is the child, which one is the parent. We'll be considering more of the parents and the children relationship when we get to CSS. But in the meantime, I believe this makes much more sense. So you can see that this is the parent, which is the P. The paragraph is the parent. And the paragraph has one child, which is the Q. And then the Q also has one other child, which is the mark. Okay, if it's not really making sense here, don't worry. It will make sense as we move on. One may also ask, how do we strike through a text? It's very simple. Use the delete keyword. This is a deleted text. And that's all. You can see that we have this text striked through. Now, what are the things that the browser's engine is very likely to ignore in your HTML document? The first one is a multi-character white space. So if you have a lot of white spaces, the browser just ignores. So you can see that there's a space between this and that. Let's even try with a paragraph. So, no. So let's say paragraph 1, and then that's a very long space, and then we go to paragraph 2. No, sorry. Paragraph 2. You see that looking at the wide amount of space we have left in between these two, we were supposed to have that wide amount of space, but that isn't what is happening. Yes, browsers ignore multiple line browsers ignore multiple white spaces that are found in your code. So that's the first thing you should take note. That is, browsers ignore multiple white spaces. Now, browsers may also ignore line breaks. So let's say you have something that is inline. So span here. Coffee is good. And we go to another span. Hammer is also better. So with this one, you would expect that since we have moved to the next line, the browser's engine is supposed to move this text onto the next line, but that is not it. It has been giving certain instruction. The span is not a block level element, but rather an inline element. That is why it's behaving like this. So they are rendered inline. We'll get to block level and inline level elements very soon, and you would appreciate what I'm saying. But one thing you should know is that line breaks can be ignored by browsers, or they are actually ignored by browsers. The next thing is that tabs are also ignored. So let's say, can we use the span again? Let's say we have this P. Kwame likes fufu. And then there's another paragraph with Kofi rather likes rice. Let's see what is happening. And then move the tab to this place. You see that even if we reload, the browser doesn't respond to the tab. Yes, so the browsers, they ignore tabs as well. They really ignore tabs. That is in HTML, because when we get to Python, you'd realize that the tabs are very important. That concept is called indentation. We'll get there, but for now, just take note of the fact that in HTML, the browser that is rendering your page doesn't incorporate any tab it sees into your page. Now, there is also one thing we call comments. And a comment is basically an instruction or a text that is used to communicate with other programmers, or it is just an information that the browser does not render. So sometimes you are working, you'd know that you would have to put a button here, but you haven't finalized on the color. So you can write that I will put a button here in later updates, and that is going to remind you, or whoever is reading your code, that you have a plan of doing something here. So this is how we write comments. Comment is written in, you bring a comment here. This is how we write a comment. So there's one other here. Just a minute. Good. So that is a comment. So with this one, you see, even if you reload it, the browser does not write it up, or the browser does not. But as soon as we change it, we should have something. Let's see. Let's write comments here. You see the comment here we wrote here has been rendered by the browser, but what is here hasn't been rendered. So there's a short way you can convert a text or any element into a comment using VS Code, and that is Control plus the /. So you press Control / and it converts whatever element into a comment. Now let's say you have multiple lines. Let's say this is a span. So Kofi, you have span. Ama, you have span. Yao. All these are running on the same line. Now let us try this and see. Good. So this is the preserve element. It is to inform the browser that you just render the page just as you see it. So if we bring a lot of spaces here, that is the same way in which the browser is going to write our code. So you see, since this one wasn't wrapped around any preserved elements, that is why the browser used this default way of rendering. But if you use the preserved keyword around it, it preserves the font, it preserves any spacing. So let's add some tabs and you would realize the tabs have been preserved. So that is the function of the preserve element as well. If you don't want your code to be seriously modified by the browser, you can wrap it inside the preserved element. So we just wrote preserve and then we came to cut the whole code and then we pasted in the preserve keyword, and that is why we are having this result.